Welcome to But For Real, a variety show podcast co-hosted by two therapists who also happen to be loudmouth feminists. I'm Valerie, your resident elder millennial child-free cat lady.
And I'm Emerson, your resident chronically online Gen Z brat. And on the show, we'll serve up a new episode every other week that will take you on a wild ride through the cultural zeitgeist, mental health, and beyond.
You'll definitely laugh and TBH sometimes maybe cry a little because this is a silly and serious show.
Buckle up, my friends, and let's get into today's episode. Well, freaking welcome back, everyone.
Hello.
Time hasn't been real. Yeah. I'm telling everyone, like BC before Christ, it's before storm.
Before Fern.
Before. So we're here. So we're coming in interesting and goofy today, but about a serious topic. So we'll just the house down boots here. So I want a goofy question to open us. What is a hot take you have about desserts and or a sweet treat that has others gagging? Everyone's like, "Val, what the fuck is wrong with you?" Everyone gets pissed when you have this take. What is it?
Well, I've never understood Twizzlers.
Thank you for saying that.
It's funny because I actually use that as an example sometimes when talking with clients about like, I just feel like I don't even know myself or I'm so indecisive or whatever. I'm like, there's a thing you have. For me, it's Twizzlers that I'm like, I can tell you unequivocally without a doubt, I fucking hate them.
Whoppers.
And there's something solid about knowing that about yourself.
Yes.
Which it's like, it's totally, irrelevant to most of life, but the feeling of knowing something so surely. So that's for me, but also I feel that way about most candy that's not chocolate. So what about you?
Yeah, fuck a red vine. Really not into a Twizzler. Why are we chewing on this?
No. Ouch.
I've had cavities. I don't really fuck with nuts in a sweet treat. I'm
sorry about that.
I'm talking brownies with a nut. I'm talking an ice cream sundae with a nut with a peanut. Get it out of here.
Do you like nuts just generally?
I mean, I'm not really reaching for them. Okay. There's something about, do I go to bars? No. But there's something about that nut bowl where I'm like, It just feels dirty. Like, I can't get behind it.
How many people's hands been in this nut bowl?
I mean, I want those, those biologists that come and swab and they do the little petri dishes and shit. I'm like, no, there's just something. And I want a gooey, like, warm brownie. I don't want to feel a crunch. Don't piss me off, actually. So nuts, get them out of here. Also, people be allergic, so. Now it's time for our first segment, Tea and Crumpets, where we tell you what we can't stop talking about this week. I've just been down the Jeanette McCurdy rabbit hole, and she was one of the people that really inspired this episode for me today. She obviously wrote her very famous memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, which I'm pumped because it's being adapted into a TV show. Ooh. And Jennifer Aniston is playing her mother. What?
That seems
so I'm shitting my pants. Yeah. I can't wait. But her debut fiction novel, Half His Age, is about a 17-year-old, and she's like in a relationship with her high school teacher. And it was grotesque. It was written totally from the perspective of a Gen Z high school girl, and usually I really dislike, for some reason, when books are talking about, quote, real life shit. Like, she's mentioning, like, the pandemic, I think, or like Shein and shit like that. And usually I feel really put off when that's in fiction, but for some reason, I listened to this via audio. I just binged it. It was just so, I just kept wanting more and more and more of the story. And topics like this are usually, I pretty like steer clear from. I just feel kind of weird about it. But I think she just did such a great job. So read it and or listen to her. Her audio voice is just so good. So yeah, couldn't stop listening. Highly recommend.
Remind me, so she's a child star. What was she on?
iCarly.
So
she's a Nickelodeon
I feel like that was like just like a beat past my time.
Yes.
Where we didn't have Nickelodeon yet or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
What about you?
So mine is a little bit similar in the sense it's her sophomore novel, if you will. But this is a person who wrote a nonfiction book called Radically Content that I love, Jamie Varon. So then she's since written two novels. And this one, Charlie Quinn, Let's Go, is so good. It was what I read. Did I mention this already? I'm sure I've told other people, but anyway. So it was like during day 2 of No Power, and I was just like, well, I guess I'll pick up a paperback. Yep. And I just read the whole thing start to finish in a day, which I never do because I'm always doing too many things. But it was so lovely and a great example of like just someone who's very type A, very kind of over-controlled, workaholic, and then trying to reconnect with herself. And there was also some very like timely references to COVID and stuff. So it was just lovely. She's an excellent writer, and I really loved the story. There's a lot of good, like, kind of, you know, spiritual, personal development kind of arcs in there that I loved.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Now it's time for Step Into My Office, where you get advice from your favorite professionally qualified, personally peculiar therapist.
This listener says, Dear Em and Val, I'm a mom of a 10-year-old who has recently gotten really into YouTube and TikTok. She keeps saying she wants to be famous or start a channel because she sees kids her age with huge followings. Part of me wants to support her creativity. She's funny, confident, honestly, probably would be great at it. But another part of me feels this pit in my stomach. What that kind of exposure does to a kid. I see what happened to so many child stars from our generation, and now it feels like the barrier to entry is basically zero. Am I being paranoid? Is it possible to do this in a healthy way? Or is wanting internet fame at 10 already a red flag about the world we're raising kids in? Sincerely, trying not to raise the next algorithm casualty. Oh, man.
Wow, I do not envy your position.
I know, because, like, y'all know, listening to this, like, we are not parents. However, we've got some good education around development, and we've worked with a lot of parents, and et cetera, et cetera. Yes. So what are you thinking?
I feel like this is just so core to, like, the kids right now, right? I think there was, whether it was a study or something that I'm trying to find in the ether of my brain where, you know, when I was a kid, I used to say, I always said I wanted to be a Disney princess, lol, but I wanted to be a teacher or something. And now you ask a kid and they want to be an influencer or a TikToker, a content creator. And I'm like, what? So, Mama, I'm hearing you here, girl. And honestly, I'm like, you know, I'm not in my clinical role. Yeah. I would not let her do it. Just straight up. 10 years old. That's young. We're not even like in preteen territory in my brain right now. So just that's dangerous.
And I think part of what's dangerous about it, because, like, I'm thinking of even so in my generation, unlike you, when I was, you know, 10 through like junior high, whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were either, I mean, I think maybe one of my friends had a ye old camcorder where we would, you know, just take lots of pictures and do performances and stuff. So it's not that, like, we were doing that stuff.
Oh,
and
my
I
God.
was like, oh, believe I'm going to be, you know, the next Britney or whatever.
Bitch, yes.
When I was 10 or 11 or 12, whenever she came out. It's always happening, but I feel like part of what makes it different now is all of the sort of immediate, like, validation, the desire to grow and the need for that. And so, yeah, I would say if there's a way to encourage the creative aspect of it, of, yeah, sure, go ahead, you know, let her create whatever cool stuff, but maybe you're kind of encouraging her to hone the craft now.
Yes.
And then later, maybe when it's a little more age appropriate, to start, like, you as the parent maybe own the account. You're the one actually posting on her behalf, etc. So I think there's ways to encourage that. And also what I would add to that is, given what you're saying about everyone wants to be this for a living, it's the same thing that I would say to someone who wants to be any kind of, you know, a famous pop star or professional athlete, these things where it's like, we don't want to crush anyone's dreams, but we also, like, have a backup plan, baby. I mean, have a trade. Yeah. So it's like, can you be encouraging, whether that's just like engagement in school overall or interest in other things that are, like, in our capitalistic society, marketable in the future, like building other skills that can be used so that this is not the only fallback. But that being said, yeah, if you get a lot of reps in doing that kind of thing, those are soft skills or even hard skills that you can bring into lots of other careers.
Yeah, if she's interested in content creation, how can you help set her up making videos and then let her edit them, right? Yeah. Let her get the experience and let her do that. But there was a little boy that came across, I'll have to try and find him. Like, he loves doing hair and he's little, like I would say 10 and under. And he's honestly, I'm like, he's like a Brad Mondo, like, upcoming. I'm like, wow. But his mom, very obviously, is filming them. She's putting them on there, and he's so little. I'm like, he's probably not there's boundaries. There
Right.
has to be boundaries when you're posting kids or letting kids post themselves.
Yeah.
So really agree with you what you're saying. Just nurture the interest, right? It's totally
Yeah.
normal. This is developmentally normal behavior
Right.
now. She's looking at the internet. She's
Yeah.
looking at her peers or people who are not her peers, but who are kids her age or just
Yeah.
a little bit above. And so there's that natural kid inclination. Well, Mom, why can't I when so-and-so does?
Right.
And I get that. And the responsibility as the parent to, the safety issue is huge right now.
And then I think the other thing that, we may get into more later, but it's like, I just really appreciate that this parent is being so thoughtful about it, because we have the flip side of the spectrum of the parent who maybe sees a little like seed of talent or charisma in their child, and it's the parent's idea that they're like, and of course the kid's going to go along with it, because if they're feeling praised and valued for that, then they might go along with it and be like, sure, I'll make this cool video with you, Mom. And like, again, not saying that it's always like manipulative or abusive or exploitative, but it very much can be, whether we're talking traditional Hollywood like we're talking about today, or we're talking content creators. So, be mindful of that element.
Absolutely.
And now it's time for the DSM. In our DSM, all varieties of dysfunction, spiraling, and meltdowns are welcome. In this segment, we break down complicated concepts and common misconceptions about mental health, well-being, and tell you what we really think.
As you know, today's episode is all about the psychological underbelly of child stardom, because culturally we've been sold this really interesting idea that fame is the privilege, money equals protection, and success equals resilience, but developmentally, that's just not how shit be clicking. So, kind of looking at some of what we were talking about for our listener submission, the identity formation, the natural occurrences of that. Erikson, our psychosocial stages of development is the theory that his ass came up with, and it's pretty tea. But we're looking in childhood and adolescence, of course, with answering that one core question. Well, who the fuck am I? Who am I?
I'm still asking.
Baby, I think I'm still an adolescent asking that question. So, as we're really engaging with that core question, being a kid, being a teenager, I see content all the time where people are feeling really sad for the kids now because no one gets to have their weird phase or their ugly phase.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's true, because that shit builds character. Yes. I'm not kidding. So this is the time for you to be trying on different identities and hats, being fucking cringe, experimenting, changing your mind. Being able to say, I want tomatoes today, and tomorrow, I fucking hate tomatoes and don't give them to me. You have every right to do that when you're just figuring yourself out. And I think one of the largest things that I wanted to point out is being able to make mistakes privately. Not at such the large scale with millions of people watching you. So some pop culture references, Miley Cyrus transitioning out of Hannah Montana when TMZ or whoever got that picture of her smoking that bong, and I was like, be so fucking for real. She's just a girl. Britney Spears just being... free Britney. We all failed her just so badly. So sexualized. I watched those videos of how all these men and people were talking to her, and it was just so fucking gross.
Yeah, as a teenager.
Yes, as a literal teenager. And then, of course, the Amanda Bynes of it all. Me and Val were just talking about this yesterday, but just how sad. And so when we're looking at identity becoming a brand, you're not getting that organic exploration like a, quote, normal kid. You're being reinforced of what's selling the tickets or getting the clicks or getting the views. And so, some research obviously is backing this up. Some studies on adolescent fame, identity formation. We're looking at it's really disrupting that internal identity kind of formation. So looking at that self-concept. And that totally makes sense. I think every time I get on the internet, there's someone in a comment section saying, y'all just don't know how to be original anymore. It's I'm doing Sophia Richie's haircut, the top comment. Y'all just don't know how to be original anymore. We're really struggling with being able to have unique identity formation without being so socially, fiscally influenced by the internet, our peers, celebrities. And, when we're looking at the nervous system piece, which I think is really relevant here, I am what they respond to. And that has to be really confusing for adults, and it is, because creators are talking about their mental health a lot more. But again, when we put this on a scale of big Hollywood and for child stars, we're not hearing them out. And so much is just existing in that underbelly, and they're getting rewarded. And we think, oh, they had a great childhood. They had all access to this, and that. No. In fact, a lot of them talk about just how fucking lonely and scary it was. And so that's not selfhood. It's just performance conditioning, which is just really tricky to work with.
Yes. So looking more kind of past the developmental lens, but into specifically the attachment piece of it, the Bowlby, the Ainsworth of it all, obviously tells us that kids need consistent, attuned caregivers.
Yes.
Who can help them separate from, you know, the output, right? So if we're adding a variable to that dynamic of caregiver, child, you know, creating that safe, secure base, and now the child is the breadwinner?
Huh?
What?
Right.
Like, that's got to be such a mind fuck. And can't remember if we are specifically going to get into this piece of it, but I'm sure the rules, the laws have changed over time in terms of what that looks like for protecting minors. But nonetheless, like, there is inherent complexity in that and how that impacts the attachment relationship. So speaking of the laws, in California, the Coogan's Law was created after this child actor, Jackie Coogan, discovered that his parents had spent most of his earnings.
What
right?
the fuck?
So yes, a portion of it does have to be protected, but that's not doing shit to address the psychological pressure component of it. Even if you're in a loving family, like best case scenario, you're 11 years old and you know that your income is a significant support to the household. How does that impact your take a shot nervous system? Of course it does. You're not just allowing yourself to be a kid. You're not being allowed to be a kid. You are kind of economically consequential in your family unit. Yeah. And, you know, I think that obviously there are situations outside of celebritydom where this can happen, right? Of course, in the US, it's not common given that other child labor is illegal. But, you know, even teenagers who are old enough to have jobs in some states, you know, you can get a special permit to work at 14, which I don't think is always a bad thing. No. But it's just, especially if the family has some, you know, financial issues, it just puts that much more pressure on a developing little soul and mind.
True.
And of course, kids are very sensitive to that feeling of conditionality. So even if no one is explicitly saying, we need you to keep working, we need you to keep going for this audition or staying on this show, even though you hate it, there's going to be that fear of, if I do stop this, like, what's going to happen for my family? The parentification sort of element and the research around that shows that kids who take on roles that are more of that sort of adult responsibility have increased risk for anxiety, depression, boundary confusion, not surprised. And that's happening now beyond just the 0.1% of Hollywood stardom into this more global phenomenon because of how every child can, you know, access a phone and become an influencer or a content creator.
Deeply. Yeah, we look at that kind of how then we're pulling into like persona, you know, me as the brand versus who am I actually. So of course the Disney Nickelodeon machine is big, more on my generation, but certainly like ties in for you as well. When we're looking at that late 90s, early 2000s, just everything, you know, the boom of show after show and awards. And, you know, of course I think we have chatted on the pod before about Quiet on Set, the docuseries.
I never finished that. I want to go back to it because I was just thinking about it.
Just tough watch, you know. It's not something to binge. There's so much to pick through there. But, you know, when we're looking at systems of abuse in that way, we're also then balancing that with some of that developmental tension. So being rewarded for compliance and just keeping quiet and having the marketability still and being rewarded for, quote, being easy, right? I think on that docuseries, there was, you know, some of the parents that were coming through that were shocked and horrified that stuff was happening to their kids. And then there were some that were like, I was uncomfortable when I was constantly trying to be pushed out of the way. I wanted to be on set with my kid. And so the Lindsay Lohan of it all, the Demi Lovato, Macaulay Culkin, you know, all of these folks that we've labeled as crazy or having their really public meltdown. And, you know, no wonder why such that compression has led to these folks just erupting, you know? And again, back to what I was saying, you should be able to be making these developmental kind of changes and or those mistakes in quotation privately, not under such spectacle. And when it is under such a spectacle and everyone's weighing in, it's just a shitstorm, and it's really probably affected these people in a way that us normies, we just can't even begin to understand.
And even some of those examples that you gave of Lindsay Lohan, Demi Lovato, Macaulay Culkin, obviously there are many more. Britney's, what was it, 2007 meltdown, that thankfully we have seen some of those people kind of come through the other side of it, and that's been really beautiful. But it doesn't happen every time, as we have also seen in some really tragic cases. So getting a little bit clinical for a moment, when we look at how common substance use issues are in that population, I mean, in the whole industry, of course, but then we look at the vulnerability of teens, and we know teens are vulnerable to that just in your average community, but you add on being in that culture of stardom, celebrity, power, wealth, fame, and it's just dialed up to 11, right? Yeah. So all of the things that are associated and kind of entangled with substance use, like trauma, chronic stress, that attachment disruption, pressure and stress of like performance, that all of those things are basically loading the gun for substance use issues. So it's almost a miracle if someone doesn't develop that, if they're starting in that kind of culture very young. So, overstimulation, being constantly evaluated, literally told, sorry, you're not good enough for this, right? You're not what we're looking for, or you're too big, or whatever, right? Chronically performing, right? I think about like the distinction between self-esteem and self-compassion, and like how self-esteem is how I judge or evaluate myself versus how I relate to myself. And if that's again hard for your average human, but if you're constantly in settings, and I think this applies too with some athletes and things like that as well.
Yeah, sure.
But you're constantly in settings where you're literally being evaluated all the time, beyond just sort of the normal, like you're getting graded on tests kind of thing. Like you are being evaluated. Are you good enough? Yikes. And then lack of privacy too, of course, especially when you reach a certain level of either fame or feeling like you've got to stay in the content machine and share everything about your life to stay relevant. So then no wonder people are reaching for substances to regulate, to numb, to have a sense of control. I just had a session yesterday where my client is like, yeah, I'm drinking too much again. And unfortunately, it just does a really good job of regulating me, neurodivergent, demanding academic program. Yeah, it's intense. And then, speaking of the substance abuse in this subculture, Drew Barrymore was very open about going to rehab at 13. Of course, many of our other folks we know have also been to rehab, some of the names that we've mentioned so far. But Drew, to me, who's just iconic, permanent woman crush, and such a beautiful example of how it is possible to land on your feet after some really hard shit, especially when you build a really good village. But yeah, in normal life, teens get to experiment with all of that and rebel in a private sort of way. Yeah. And child stars have to do that all in a very public, highly scrutinized lens. So, of course, that's amplifying any shame that happens with, like, I mean, I had my own, like, oh, my God, I did what? And that was in a largely mostly private space. So, yeah, there's a lot of setup there.
Deeply. And I think that's what's so interesting in, the generational perspective that you and I always get to dig into here is so special. And so part of that is how millennials had paparazzi. And of course, paparazzi
TMZ, baby.
TMZ, Perez Hilton of it all, honey. We're just hitting that refresh. The countdown clock to girls turning 18.
Yuck.
Disgusting. Ashton Kutcher, fuck you for saying that about Hilary Duff. Oh, and we just can't wait till she's 8. And fuck you. He's so
I
disgusting.
Didn't even know that gross.
Oh, yeah. He's fucking gross. If you're watching Ashton, he's not, but whatever. So, that paparazzi culture of the 90s, 2000s. And again, it's still here, but now the algorithm is being the pap for us, hun. So there are no, kind of back to the Coogan law of it all, there are no comprehensive federal labor laws for child influencers in the U.S. I do know from watching, I came across my feed not long ago, Sherry Frankie, who is Ruby Frankie's daughter from the very famous, like, religious YouTube family channel 8 Passengers. She's the one that's locked up with, like, the Mormon of it all. I forget her name, that other, Jody Hildebrandt and Ruby Frankie, for literally mentally and physically and psychologically abusing those children. Ugh. So Sherry Frankie is the eldest daughter, and she has been making moves and is trying to push legislation specifically specifically for more of the YouTube internet realm for children because none of them were protected. So some states are beginning to pass legislation. Illinois recently passed for protecting child influences earnings, which is tea. But, you know, of course, we're still dealing with the fact that it's so big right now. And, you know, much to our step into my WAFIS submission, here's a 10-year-old that's really wanting to kind of, quote, break into this part of the world and the internet and the entertainment industry. And, you know, TikTok has just democratized child stardom. It's where we love those family vlog channels. We love the teen influencers, you know, do a get ready with me at 5 a.m. before I go to my high school. And it's what? Like, I was getting up at 5 a.m. and pretending like I was a YouTuber, but it wasn't going anywhere. I just was kind of having my own, you know, internal whatever, but I wasn't.
It was play.
It was play, and I wasn't putting it anywhere. It was just for me, and that was enough at the time. And, you know, I was in high school from 2014 to 2017. So, you know, the kicker with that, just the continued nervous system response. And so not only did we used to have to worry for young people on the internet with just the amount of time and the energy and the self-image and the clicks, but now there's money involved, and that just gets really fucking dicey. There's money and there's the ability to go viral overnight. And I don't care, everyone likes to talk about virality. Anyone can get a video out there and it can be picked up like that. And you can get that fame overnight for being a normal person, for being a normal teenager.
And what's the, I'm forgetting the type of reinforcement, intermittent reinforcement maybe.
Okay.
Where it's like, that's why gambling is so addictive.
Oh, yeah.
Is that it could, you can hit the jackpot at any point. Like the odds may be low, but anyone can hit it.
Yes.
And that's part of why... Yes, if anyone can go viral, well, I'll just keep trying and keep trying and keep trying and keep trying.
And that's what people are doing.
Because it could happen.
Yes, deeply.
I was going to add, too, when you were mentioning kind of the play of the Get Ready With Me.
Yes.
When I was like 13 or around that age, my thing was I was obsessed with, because keep in mind, like, I don't even know if we had the Disney Channel yet at that point. And so I was on Nickelodeon and Home Shopping Network and QVC.
Well, yes, babe.
And believe that I was
QVC
for my friends performing, you know, selling whatever items I had around my house, in addition to trying to convince my father to buy certain items from
Dad, I need this knife set.
I do. I got him to buy a pant set because I was like, Dad, you don't understand how good. I just listened for an hour. How good these pots and pans are.
It's nonstick.
I mean, come on. So, but yeah, that was like my little performance. Was like I was convinced for a minute that was my future career.
Oh, sure. I see that for you.
Okay, so looking at the parasocial piece of this, the boundary collapse. And as a reminder, we have a whole episode on parasocial relationships.
Yes.
But basically, those one-sided relationships where me and all my Peloton instructors who don't know me, but they're my besties because I'm kept checking in on what are they doing in life and I love them. And so there can be a little bit of challenge for that, like in adults, especially if you don't have a good actual social support system, it can get a little wonky. But for kids, if is it going to prevent them from developing like real meaningful relationships if they're like, oh, well, these are all the people that I care about and I check in with and I know everything that's going on in their lives. Jojo Siwa built this whole empire, just hyper visibility, but then had to, whereas in normal teenagehood, it's like, okay, I get to experiment with that privately.
Yes.
Had to publicly renegotiate whole identity, right?
It still is.
Yeah, it's amazing. And when millions of people feel entitled to everything that's going on in your life and all your private information and who you're dating and all of that, then the process of individuation becomes this whole public negotiation and yuck.
Big yuck.
Then we have to deal with this element of it, of the privilege of it, because the privilege is real.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Money and
success.
success.
Celebrities will acknowledge that.
Sure.
Usually. So there's this, but they had everything. But okay, let's look at what everything is. Let's look at what's really valuable. Like money does not regulate a nervous system. Obviously, poverty can dysregulate, but money does not regulate a nervous system. Fame does not guarantee secure attachment, and validation does not replace genuine attunement, right? So research shows us that the perceived social support, not wealth, is one of the strongest predictors of psychological well-being.
Deeply. Yeah, so not every child star struggles, and not every public unraveling necessarily is a trauma. And we are not diagnosing anyone, just we always have to put that precursor there. But growing up as a commodity is just weird. I mean, just like straight up, it's weird. It's compressing that identity formation, and then we're entangling, potential parentification. I read earlier last year Alison Stoner's memoir, Semi-Well-Adjusted Despite Literally Everything, is what she called it.
What a great title.
Former Disney kid. It was fucking amazing, and she talked so much about that pressure with the money and the industry and what it has done to her. And, it amplifies shame. We're removing privacy, which is so essential for differentiation. And so, millennials, you all really kind of consumed the spectacle. And then Gen Z is kind of trying to navigate that machine from inside, which is going to be really interesting as laws continue to pass, how things are just going to keep moving and changing in this area the more that we get real about what it actually is and what it has done to people and what we don't want it to do to anybody else.
But for real.
Yeah, babe.
Maybe we shouldn't be asking, like, what the fuck is wrong with these child stars? And maybe we should be asking what kind of culture requires kids to carry this level of economic responsibility and pressure. Kids are not brands.
No.
And fame does not replace attunement. And also, the nervous system doesn't give a shit how many followers you have.
Mic drop, honey.
And now, our musical segment. Now that's what I call Okay. Where Emerson and I each share a song with each other each week as representatives of our respective generations. We tell you a little bit about the song or artist, and then we press pause, we share the song with each other, and then we come back for our live reactions. And we're capturing it all on a Spotify playlist linked in the show notes for you. Well,
I mean,
I really thought about it, and I wanted to choose a newer Britney song.
Yeah.
By newer, I mean like 2012 or something.
we did 2026.
But I had to go Baby One More Time
Well,
because,
sure.
my God. And I thought I would just give a little bit of deets here. So this was written and produced by Max Martin, originally for the Backstreet Boys and TLC, but they both rejected it. When Britney was originally trying to get signed, like having all these conversations with labels at 14 years old, 3 labels rejected her. They were like, nobody wants another Tiffany, Madonna, Debbie Gibson. People want Backstreet Boys, Spice Girls. They were talking about her joining this pop band. And then she clearly proved everyone wrong. She was 16 when this single came out. In 2011, Baby One More Time was voted by Billboard to be the best music video of the 1990s.
Wow.
And in 2021, the song was ranked at number 205 on Rolling Stone's 500 greatest songs of all time.
Hell yeah.
Iconic.
Wow. I mean, we were discussing, like, Britney, I love you, girl. I will always love you. This came out in 99. Baby girl was born in June of 99.
And I was peak audience at 14 or 13 or somewhere around there.
I'm imagining you being 14 and carrying me. Isn't that interesting? And I'm like, okay, that's a mindfuck for us to unpack later.
Seriously.
Wow. But just
like
the pink. Yes, very, like little talk. But I remember like watching this on MTV and stuff. And like, I was like, oh my God, I want to be here because she's tea. So, but yes, that you can see sort of that early sexualization in my heart. I'm just like, she's just a girl.
Just a girl. All right, what's your pick?
Okay, this performance was a big one for me, very recent. So this is Justin Bieber's recent performance at the Grammys. He sang Yukon, which is from his album Swag, which released last year. Yukon is totally, in my understanding, a love letter to Haley, his partner. So, yeah, it just was such a big inspiration. And the more that I sit with the Epstein files and the more that I think about him and Diddy and just everything, him as a child star. And again, like he's kind of my Britney. Yeah. Just like what they've done to this individual and his public crash outs and his meltdowns and just such like interesting opinion around this person that's been in the industry for 2 decades now. I have so many thoughts about him and this performance, but if you haven't seen this performance, I highly recommend it. Everyone's giving him a lot of shit, saying that he just doesn't care and he's spitting on the industry because it comes out in his boxers and socks. But to me, the performance is, I just like feel chills even speaking about it. To me, it's such a raw, I'm literally stripped down in front of everyone in Hollywood, in front of everyone in the world, because you've stripped everything away from me, but you cannot strip his talent. Wow. And he was just, singing directly to his wife, his partner, who I don't doubt is just by his side. And so really, really lovely performance. And I can't wait for you to see it.
I mean,
wow. I want to cry, but I'm also sweating. I'm like,
we're fanning
wow.
our faces, listeners.
I mean, he's just very handsome, you know, like not that it matters, but
that has the thing, right?
Oh,
the
my God.
charisma, like the it factor, whatever, right? What an intimate performance, and to be able
my
to
God.
be that intimate when you're performing at that level of stage is just wild. That's a skill.
Oh my God.
And that's part of what some of the people were saying and what I was reading about Britney. They were like, it's just uncommon at this age for someone to be able to convey this level of emotionality.
It's
right?
amazing, truly.
And now for our last segment of the show, welcome to Fire Dumpster Phoenix. It is rough out there, y'all, and we need all the hope we can get. It's time to go dumpster diving for some positive news and rise from the leftover Happy Meal ashes together.
Honey,
What do you got today?
what do you do when you discover your childhood pen pal is your OBGYN that has delivered not one, but two of your babies? So, Megan Lewis, when she was in second grade in a little school in Pennsylvania, spent time writing letters to a junior in high school, and her name was Suzanne. The girls divulged activities they loved, dreams, favorite foods, and more over their time writing to one another from 1994 to 1995. Megan's mother must have been digging through all their stuff, found these letters last Thanksgiving, and with a swift Google search, Megan was astonished to see her OB, Dr. Pugh, as the Suzanne who she was writing her letters to all those years ago. Just how stinking cute, and such a small world, and just totally recommend reading the article, but it was just... She was like, what? That's you? I just can't believe, like, such a small, I don't know, like, small world, right? But just when those things happen, she talked about, you know, she's had challenging pregnancies, but, like, this doctor was there for her and delivered her two healthy babies. So, like, just how fascinating when things like that happen.
And I'm not surprised that this woman that grew up to be a doctor, because I'm like, girl, what are you doing using your free time writing to a second grader? Not me.
No.
Wouldn't be me.
It's so cute.
It is really cute. Okay, and mine is just Bad Bunny's halftime
Oh
show,
my God.
period.
Benito Bowl, baby.
And I have to say I'm a little bit proud of myself because normally, like, if it's not music that I typically would listen to, I'm like, oh, that's fine. You know, I can see the talent. Yeah. But I'm not, like, into it. But, like, for some reason, I just got really into this. And I'm into the cultural moment of it all. I mean, the fact that this is happening at a time where we have the fucking Gestapo in the streets and this all Spanish performance, like, I'm just here for every bit of it. And I'm now a fan, like, genuinely.
Yes, he's so fucking talented. I mean, wow. Benito, kisses
Love
to
you.
you. Yes.
Okay, listeners, we'll see you next time.
Mwah. Bye.
This has been another episode of But For Real, hosted by Valerie Martin and Emerson Ryder, and edited by Volt Productions. But For Real is produced by the Gaia Center for Embodied Healing. The Gaia Center offers individual, couples, and group therapy for clients across Tennessee and in person in our Nashville office, as well as coaching and other programs for clients worldwide. For show notes or to learn more about our work, visit GaiaCenter.co or find us on Instagram at The Gaia Center and at But For Real Pod. But For Real is intended for education and entertainment and is not a substitute for mental health treatment. Also, since we host this podcast primarily as humans rather than clinicians, we are not shy about sharing our opinions here on everything from snacks and movies to politicians and social issues. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. See you next time, bestie!